Just before we begin this review, I'd like to give a special mention and shout to Kazakh the Gaming Vagabond. Now if you're into JRPGs as well as the Warriors series like I am, then you're gonna absolutely love his content, as he does post regularly with things like his aftermath with the Switch 2, and his general thoughts about things like do we need a Persona 4 remake, and even has provided some other amazing content regarding the Warriors series as well as also Capcom fighting games in general, and JRPGs like the Tales series as well as Persona and Suikoden. And he's been a very amazing member of my whole community, so please, if you love my content like Warriors and JRPGs, then I also recommend you check his stuff out as well. I'll leave the link in the description down below so you can check out his content and subscribe to his channel. With that said, let's get back to the review. Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here. Now, it bears no repeating that Koei Tecmo has been on fire this year, with not only delivering the amazing Dynasty Warriors Origins and Atelier Yumia, but also reviving Ninja Gaiden, with not only a brand new 2D game that's both a nice throwback to the NES games, as well as an Unreal Engine 5 remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2, and a full mainline new installment in over a decade. And that's not even to mention the bunch of upcoming releases, especially for Switch 2. However, among all the many surprises, there is one that has, well, recently caught people by surprise, and that will have to be Warriors Abyss. Both announced and then shadow dropped at February State of Play on 12th of February 2025 for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, as well as Xbox Series and PC, as well as Nintendo Switch, with it being an interesting spin-off from both mixing traditional Warriors gameplay with roguelike elements, a genre itself that has been prevalent with hits like say Vampire Survivors and Hades, and this one potentially offering over 16 million battle styles. And so, is this game a welcome surprise, or was this one dropped for the sake of it? Well, that's what I'm here to find out. Special thanks to Koei Tecmo Europe for providing me a review code for the PC version. But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing here, then by all means, like the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, and hit that notification icon if you want more Warriors content from yours truly. With that said, let's get back to the video, and with that, let's make some bad decisions, die lots of times, and fight over 1,000 enemies in hell as we head straight into Warriors Abyss. So the plot for Warriors Abyss revolves around Enma, the king of the underworld, calling heroes from both the Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors series, as well as other various characters. To hell no less.
Welcome to hell!
From there, they are ordered to slay a being known as Goma, that's disrupting hell as its brand new domain. And that is the story, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The story for this game just exists, and it's barely a footnote here, with the only thing to note about is the various interactions with Enma, who overall has a very joyous personality and just some funny reactions, depending on the dialogue choices you're provided. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the whole story. So, if you were expecting like say grand story, or even to have like say character interactions on par with Warriors Orochi or even Warriors All-Stars, then sadly this game's not going to deliver on that front. However, with what is lost with the story, what we gain instead is something truly amazing. Now we get on to the visuals. And yeah, it's an aspect that I'm fairly mixed upon. So for Warriors Abyss, they went for a more top-down isometric style, which you see in games like of course the aforementioned Hades. And it's an aspect that's cool, but however, when you come across things like say the UI as well as the very less detailed models, it makes the game feel like, well, a mobile game, which oddly enough, many people were turned off by, especially when it was first revealed. It's not also helped by the fact that the character models from this are both lifted from both Dynasty Warriors 8 and Samurai Warriors 4, two games that are now over 10 years old, within some exceptions. Now as for performance, this game ran at a very smooth 60 FPS, almost near flawlessly, and overall made the action both chaotic and fluid. Even if it did drop a little bit of frames during the more assemble attacks, with the various amount of particle effects it throws at you, and colors that does splatter around that makes this game feel a bit much and can sometimes be very confusing to look at, especially when you have enemies glow purple attacks. So yeah, visually, this game isn't really that impressive, except of course the DLC costumes, which are always a 10 out of 10. Now we move on to the combat, and this, my friends, is where Warriors Abyss really shines in the most here. So with like other Warriors games, combat will have you attacking with various combo strings of both light and heavy attacks, and some characters have the ability to perform EX or hyper attacks, and you're also able to provide your own Muso attack to activate after dealing or taking damage, as well as also the option to dodge, albeit on a cooldown. But that is where the similarity ends, as Warriors Abyss adds lots of new mechanics here. One is the summon mechanic, where after you complete a phase, you have the option to select 1 out of 3 heroes to be an ally for, and each will provide their own emblem, as well as increase in stats, and bonus perks, depending which hero you selected to play as, with the amount you can hold is 6. And while the other heroes you do gain, go into the reserve menu, and you have the option to switch between them to better customize your own layout, as well as the formation. You are also able to summon one of them by pressing the heavy attack button depending on the combo string you pull. Each of them provide a special AoE attack, and then a return for cooldown phase, among also the assembler mechanic, the yellow gauge that will grow the more enemies you kill, as well as yellow orbs you gather after hitting bosses when they're open. And once it's full, you get to unleash a powerful barrage of attacks till the gauge runs out. However, if you use your Muso gauge before that runs out, you get to perform a powerful attack that will end off with your allies performing one powerful finisher that can deal a lot of damage.
Oh, that's a lot of damage!
Among that, each phase will have enemies that will drop emblems that will provide you things like evasion, defense, elemental, and wisdom that can help build your character, among also occasionally dropping peaches that will restore your HP, as well as armor and weapons that will grant you temporary buffs. Every enemy you defeat will grant you crystals that will help you level up and increase your general stats and HP. You'll occasionally come across certain zones, and each will provide various options of how to approach the next set of phases, with things like increasing attack at the cost of reduced HP, or reducing enemies' defense for one phase, etc. And this is where I think the roguelike elements really play off well, of making your runs feel absolutely unique, and the choices players will have to make on how they build their characters, choose their own allies, and finding which path to take, and whether or not they want to do things like find various peach trees to increase their HP, or go into danger zones.
Danger zone?
To fight enemies that will come with additional missions, or even find various cauldrons where they can spend blood tears on buffs, some available allies, as well as also gain blood tears and combat embers. This whole blend of customization, player choice, with these overall roguelike elements, mixed within the traditional Warriors combat, and on top of how a lot of them have their own unique movesets, makes it for both a fun, though intense experience. Especially when you come across each level, where enemies will become a lot more aggressive, and you have to really pay attention. And the same can be said for the bosses here, and you're more likely gonna get your ass kicked. A lot.
Oh, bats. I really figured you'd last longer than that.
And as for the bosses themselves, I'm sort of mixed upon them. On one hand, I do like that they have these telegraphed movesets, where you really have to pay attention and memorize them, even if you do die. However, on the other hand, I'm not entirely fond of them mostly being a bit tanky, well, depending on the build you choose, having to deplete their shield meter, and having either a small or big window for just one opening attack to fill your assemble gauge. For my preference, I much prefer the boss design from Fate Samurai Remnant as well as Dynasty Warriors Origins, where while they have the shield meter, they can still be comboed and juggled when they're either open for attack or retaliated after a successful parry or dodge. Then again, it's not much of an issue depending on how you build your character, and if you do it well, you can potentially melt their own shield and HP with either your Muso or Assemble gauge, and defeating them will grant you a relic that can boost your character even further. Other nitpicks I do have though with this game is that the particle effects from your summons and Assemble gauge do sort of blur in together, especially when you have enemies emit purple attacks, so it can feel a little bit confusing. And I'm also not fond of how chunks of enemies tend to block you when evading. But outside of that, the gameplay in Warriors Abyss is easily the strong suit here. When it comes to music, the music itself is fairly solid, with some tracks coming straight up from Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, as well as other tracks depending on the character you choose, and they honestly fit during the early stages. However, as far as original music is concerned, it's not too bad, especially when you come across the second stage's battle music, which honestly gives me Fate Samurai Remnant vibes, as well as the boss music here being intense, almost like a Kingdom Hearts boss theme. And the final boss music is absolute gold here. So, as usual, let's have a listen here. Now we move on to the content, and just like with the gameplay, the content in Warriors Abyss is also its strong suit, and that being its huge replay value, as Abyss will contain 4 stages with 8 phases, ending off with a boss, and then ending off with a final boss with 2 phases. Though, as mentioned in the gameplay segment, your choice of which phase to go next, and also the option to choose of what buffs to use, what allies to recruit and approach, makes the runs feel very unique. There are also tons of weapons and relics to obtain for each character, upon having a huge roster of over 100 characters to play as, a lot of them coming from both Dynasty Warriors 8, Samurai Warriors 4, and, at the time of this review, various guest characters from other franchises like, say, the Atelier series, with characters like Sophie, Ryza, and Yumia. And also, at the time of this review, Warriors Abyss will also add a new mode, True Final Boss, a BGM customization feature, and new characters. And guess what? All of it is a free update, no less. Just like with the Atelier characters, as well as the Jin faction from Dynasty Warriors. Also, there are costumes which are of course paid DLC, which is cool, I guess. A set and run of this game can take you roughly an hour, depending on how well you do. But if you do nearly everything, you can potentially gain about 12 to 25 hours of content. So, with that, how is Warriors Abyss? Well, simply put, Just like with how Koei Tecmo shadow dropped Ninja Gaiden 2 Black as a nice surprise. Or was it Izuna dropped?
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
Anyway, as I was saying, it was honestly surprising to see another Warriors game straight after Dynasty Warriors Origins. And while I do think that Origins was still a great game and overall set a new foundation as well as new standard for future Warriors games to adopt and further build upon, Abyss itself was a neat touch of being an experimental spin-off with merging one genre with its own to great results no less. And it was fully realized here, as even in the past, both Dynasty Warriors 4 and 5 Extreme Legends did have a roguelike mode to itself, though not as in-depth as say Warriors Abyss. And this game was pretty much another Warriors Orochi successor. Now sure, the story and visuals may leave a lot to be desired, but however, the core gameplay mixed with the customization on top of new additional content and having a huge roster of playable characters makes this overall a fun experience, and for $25 this makes it really a bargain, especially when you have the amount of replay value you can get here. And I think hardcore Warriors fans should definitely consider this game at least a try in my book. And I do hope that elements of this, as well as Dynasty Warriors Origins, do lead to a potential Warriors Orochi 5, and of course, Samurai Warriors 6. Come on Koei Tecmo and Omega Force, it's time! Overall, I'll give Warriors Abyss a strong 3.5 NMAs out of 5. And with that, let me know down in the comments if you guys played this game, what you think of it. Are you guys gonna plan to get Warriors Abyss? And yeah, this was overall a fun time and hope you guys enjoyed this review. And once as always, special thanks to my patrons here. And also, once again, special shout out to Kazakh the Gaming Vagabond. Make sure you subscribe to his channel if you're also into JRPG and Warriors content like I am. Well, until then, Mad Kaiser, out.